Awesome. So again, thank you for being here this evening. My name is Yolanda Jones. You have attended or signed up to attend the Thursdays with the UDO, our virtual listening session series. I am a senior project manager for community outreach, and I am joined by additional staff members, including the Unified Development Ordinance Project team tonight. Tonight's session will cover heritage tree protection. The virtual listening session topics that will be covered over the next several weeks were selected based on public comments and feedback received to date. These sessions are a chance for you as the community to share your opinions about the standards within the first draft, and they are designed as an additional avenue to submit your feedback on this first draft. The goal of these sessions is to listen to your feedbacks, suggestions, and concerns. And please note that the emphasis is on listening versus responding. Questions and comments that are shared during these sessions will be transcribed and entered into our public comment portal for response after the close of each session. So we will enter the comments into our public comment portal after each session, which will then be later on responded to. I'd like to share a couple of guidelines for the session this evening. Those who signed up to speak during the registration period will be called upon in the order for which you registered. Each speaker is given 2 minutes to speak. Please note that you will receive a request from the meeting host to unmute yourself when it is your turn to speak. To maintain fairness, once your 2 minutes has expired, you will be muted and the next person will be called upon. Those who did not register to speak during registration but wish to speak now may type their name into the chat to be added to the queue. Once the queue is cleared, attendees may request to speak again, time permitting. We encourage attendees to share your opinions in an honest and civil manner. Again, staff emphasis is on listening versus responding. On this slide, you will see a few key dates related to the UDO project. Our draft was released on October 7th, and we are still in the first phase of engagement, and the public comment period is still active. Grab a pen, jot it down via text, however you'd like to do it, but March 18th is a very important date because that is the very last day for public comments during this period. Again, that is March 18th. After this comment period closes on March 18th, we will review the comments in preparation for a red line draft with revisions. That second draft of the UDO is scheduled for May of this year. We will have a council public hearing in June, and as well as a planning committee recommendation meeting with hopeful adoption in July of 2022. Today's session will include an outline of the proposed approach for regulating heritage trees that is within the first draft of the UDO. There's going to be a brief presentation by Tim Porter, our Chief Urban Forester. We will then open the floor for our open forum period, and I will come back and give those same exact guidelines from previous. And then we will close by highlighting some UDO resources and some upcoming engagement opportunities. I will turn it over to Tim.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time and your interest tonight on this important topic. As Yolanda said, this will be a brief presentation on some key components that went into support the heritage tree proposed regulation. Starting with some of the background foundational data used to support this important regulation. A lot going on the slide. If you focus on the pie chart in the middle and just to the upper right of that, you see that the primary canopy loss from 2012 to 2018 took place in single-family residential zoning areas. To the right in that orange colored text block are the primary causes of the canopy loss over that time period. Aging canopy in some urban core neighborhoods. There's a significant aging canopy crisis taking place with a lot of very large, older, mature trees are aging out and declining and dying at the same time. There's also been an increased occurrences of storm events, infill development, general property owner decisions, and and redevelopment have all combined to really drive that canopy loss in those areas. And looking to the left and the other zoning designations, there's definitely canopy loss going on everywhere, but by and large, the majority of our canopy that exists in Charlotte is in single family residential areas, and that's where we saw the greatest canopy losses. This analysis was developed. It was built upon some other analysis that Trees Charlotte completed. Our nonprofit partner in moving the tree canopy objectives forward, Tree Charlotte conducted some canopy analysis in 2019, and during the tree canopy action plan process, we built on that analysis to dive a little deeper into specific demographics and other variables like zoning. So thank you to Tree Charlotte for that initial data that we can work off of. Next slide, please. So diving right into the proposed regulation, I did want to mention that you can see that stamp on the slide there, right, kind of the middle left, tree canopy action plan. That was a recommendation from the stakeholder project that took place within the tree canopy action plan initiative. This proposed regulation is also based on the left there, you see policy 7.7 and City Council's adopted comprehensive plan to preserve large, healthy, mature trees and existing contiguous forested areas, to make that a priority. One of the methods that we're proposing to meet that policy objective is the heritage tree regulation, which is a requirement that would apply across the entire city. That all trees of 30 inches or greater, DBH, which is a diameter measurement taken at 4.5 feet above the ground, for all native trees to North Carolina would be preserved. Any dead, diseased, hazardous, significantly declining trees can be removed without a permit. Mitigation would not be required for those removal situations, but it would be required for other authorized removals. Next slide, please. So starting on the left, there are two mitigation requirements. The first one will be a mitigation fee. The starting point is $1,000 for that. And if you move down below to the example graphic, that fee level can be reduced to $500 if there's additional replanting for every 10 inches removed. So in that example, a 45-inch native heritage tree, if authorized for removal and the property owner or contractor plants 5 trees back, that could reduce the mitigation fee to $1,000. Again, mitigation is not required for the removal of diseased, dead, or hazardous trees. There's also mitigation replanting requirements. So mitigation is twofold, a fee and replanting. Property owners would be required to plant at least one tree, a 2-inch diameter tree, for every tree that was removed. And again, the fee could be reduced if additional trees were planted for every 10 inches of tree diameter removed. Next slide, please. And I'll toss it back over to Yolanda.
Thank you, Tim. So I'm going to quickly go back over those guidelines, just really quickly. Each speaker will have the floor for 2 minutes. Please note that you will receive a request on your screen that will allow you to unmute yourself during the time that you will be speaking. And to maintain fairness, we will mute speakers at their 2 minute, once their 2 minutes has expired, and the next person will be called upon. Those, again, who did not sign up prior to the meeting but would like to speak, all you need to do is drop your name in the chat so that you can be added to the queue in order to speak. And then time permitting, we will allow anyone who has additional thoughts or would like to continue to speak after their original 2 minutes has expired to do that, as long as we still have time in the session. So our first speaker tonight that has registered is Carla Knox. Carla, are you with us this evening? Okay. Stacey Erickson. Stacey, are you with us this evening? Kristen Riley. Kristen Riley, are you with us this evening? Okay. Regina Ziska, and I'm sorry if I've messed your last name up. Regina, are you with us this evening? I think I do see you, Regina, in the participants list. We would send you a request to unmute if you'd like to click that request to unmute. Regina, I'm not sure if you're getting that request, but if you could just send us something in the chat to let us know if you're having any kind of difficulties, and we will definitely come back to you in order to be able to hear you. Now go ahead to be cognizant of time. The next person on the list is John Friday. Mr. Friday, are you with us?
I am. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Friday. Awesome.
Yolanda, Tim, Laura, Alan, Allison, all thank you for doing this. I really think it's important what you're doing, and I fully support having the UDO require for the first time, I believe, on private property a regulation. I'm not sure this will do what we want to do, but I know it's a first step. If single family is losing 60% of the tree canopy, and I went on our property, we have 9 large trees, only one of which is actually 30 inches in diameter. I feel like I know you have to start somewhere, but could we go to 24 inches, and could we actually require people to plant trees if they take them down? Not just $1,000 is really no money. It costs 4 times that to take the tree down to begin with. It probably costs that much for a driveway permit. It costs a lot more than that for a building permit. It doesn't seem like it is enough of a penalty to encourage people to move whatever they're doing around so as not to take the tree down, given that it's not diseased or a hazard. And so I would up the value of the penalty and require the trees to be planted on their property to really aggressively go after saving our tree canopy. But I do applaud the efforts. I just wish it could be stronger, and I would support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friday. Our very next speaker is Jim Seitz. Mr. Seitz, are you here with us this evening? Okay. Sean Welch is our next registered speaker. Sean, are you here with us this evening? Okay. Next up, Billy Anderson. Billy, are you here with us this evening?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good evening. Again, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to voice my opinion and for valuing our trees. As I'm contemplated the myriad reasons tree protection in Charlotte is of the utmost concern, my mind naturally considered environmental reasons, such as the amount of carbon sequestered in our trees or the pollutants filtered, and economic reasons, such as decreased energy bill for residents and increased home values. But my thoughts kept returning to the mental health impact of our trees, and I want to make sure that that's considered in the assessment of this as well. Surrounding ourselves with trees has physiological impacts, such as chemical changes that decrease our anxiety. During a national mental health crisis that's not sparing our residents and youth, it's time we consider even seemingly simple ways to ameliorate the lives of Charlottans. Our hardy and luscious tree canopy provides refuge and hope. In the winter, lights twinkle around large trunks and hang from high branches. The flowering dogwood in the front yard of our first home in Plaza Midwood signaled warm weather to come. Magnolias become tree forts in yards in all parts of the city. Large oaks give cover to young couples eating in Freedom Park. and we take a moment for solace, mindfulness, peace, or even much needed fun on swings and old trees. And the bright burning colors visible in the fall make everyone slow down and appreciate the Queen City's beauty. These are more than just trees. They hold more than carbon and pollutants. These hold our memories. They welcome us home to Charlotte. We have environmental, financial, and other reasons to save and protect our trees. But let us not forget the moments that we've been afforded by the great tree canopy of our city. We must not simply do what we think we can to protect our trees. Echoing what Mr. Friday said, we must push ourselves to do all that's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy, for your feedback. Our next speaker is Chris Kearns. Chris, are you here with us this evening?
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
I am probably as big a conservationist as anybody in Charlotte. I love trees, and I could go on and on about, my perspective on that, but I'm going to approach it a little differently. I don't think, while I'm really receptive to what John said, I don't think there's that many people that are desiring to take trees down for random reasons. I mean, I think most of us love trees. Most people want trees in their yard. The only thing that would bring them to even consider it, given the cost, which he's exactly right about, is something that they consider to be a need or a fear. And of course, that one could be that they're worried the tree's sick, or it's in a position that a storm could take it down, that kind of thing. So I think if we start with the premise that people don't want to take trees down as opposed to their desire to do it, we have a different perspective. A lot of people are going to be affected by this, don't know anything about it, and wouldn't pay attention to a UDO thing because they think that's for developers. And this is really focused on a real big policy change to go in and regulate individual single family homes. Most of the loss of tree canopy that we have in the single family area is not from individuals taking down their trees. It's from infill development and all the other reasons that are listed there. That's the vast majority of it. The individuals that take down trees in their yards, I don't think there's any way to measure that, but that's probably a fairly small number. And a lot of my comments were based on the cost, and I admit to not knowing, because the numbers that you put were different from the ones I had seen in the Charlotte mitigation costs. I don't know, maybe one of the staff can answer that. Have those mitigation costs changed from the initial ones? Because they are much lower than I thought. What I had been told in other dealings with trees was $200.
Mr. Kearns,
yes.
I hate to stop you here, but we've reached our 2-minute mark. However, I will let you know we will have time permitting, and we'll call you back up to finish your thoughts.
Thank you.
Absolutely. The next person on our list is Julian Rosity. Julian, are you with?
Yolanda, you're muted.
Zoom just doesn't want to cooperate. I apologize. We did have one person still sign up in the chat. Hope Yancey, would you like to speak?
Yes, good evening.
You can go right ahead.
I have a number of questions that were not addressed in the short presentation at the beginning or in the draft proposal itself that I read. I'll just briefly try to move through some of these questions. I don't think that I can get through all of them in 2 minutes. The proposal says that a tree disturbing activity would require a permit. I'm curious how the city defines a tree disturbing activity involving a heritage tree. Would pruning and other routine maintenance by a tree service or arborist the homeowner hired be considered a tree disturbing activity and require a permit? As far as the permit that's required to remove a heritage tree, how would this permitting process be carried out? Would it be the homeowner or their tree service responsible for obtaining the permit? I also have to disagree with the speaker, Mr. Friday, who trivialized the $1,000 mitigation fee. $1,000 is a lot of money to me and to most people, and we're not even out of the pandemic yet. I would question increasing that fee. I think that's a mistake. I think $1,000 is too much. I'm also concerned about who will make the decision whether a heritage tree is sufficiently diseased or dead, et cetera, to warrant removal. If you don't have to have a permit to remove the tree if it's diseased or dead or meets the other criteria, how is that going to be handled? And how would conflicts of opinion on these matters be resolved? I also want to add that I agree with much of what Mr. Kearns said. My instinct is that it is development and the activity of developers in Charlotte, not individual homeowners who are threatening Charlotte's tree canopy. We need only drive around town.
I'm going to just break in just a second. I don't want anyone to think I'm being mean. I'm just going to try to be fair. You've reached your 2 minutes, but we will definitely come back around because we will have enough time to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, looks like, to be in fairness, Mr. Stein, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Jim, you've arrived. Would you like to speak?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Awesome. You have 2 minutes. You can go right ahead.
Yes, I just want to express my support for making this this heritage tree rule as strong as possible. One of the most striking impressions that I've gotten in the time I've lived in Charlotte is the rapid rate of tree loss, both on the periphery and in what might appear to be, within the existing urban boundary. I don't see much in the way of rules, restrictions, or just ways of keeping our natural heritage here. I see a tremendous rate of loss happening, and you can literally see, the effects of that in terms of the roadkill from animals fleeing when the bulldozers arrive. Given the global ecological meltdown that must set the context for this conversation, we really need to exercise the fullest extent of Charlotte's constitutional power to keep as many of our trees as possible, both on undeveloped land as well as what we're now calling heritage trees on individual lots. And I do think that $1,000 is less than trivial compared to the value of these trees in the times that we are now living in. And that's all I have to say, really. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It looks like one of our previous speakers called has arrived. Sean Welch. Would you like to speak? Sean, you will receive it. Awesome. Yes, we can. You have 2 minutes.
Hey guys, there we go. Apologies, I've been running a bit behind today. How's everybody doing? Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good, cool. I'm having some problems getting things operational. All right. I'm definitely for this ordinance that you guys are have got proposed. I really would like to see a bit more definition involved in a few of the different things. I think having a 30-inch diameter specification is pretty large, given like the species diversity and stuff out here. I think again, we really should look to possibly dial even down that number of removal there that we were looking to do, and potentially even having a few, half a dozen or a dozen different species that we're really looking to protect and preserve. A lot of our natural species that are out here, some of the times they're not really going to get to be 30 inches in diameter unless they're going to be mature oak or stuff like that. But there's definitely a lot other species that we can look to preserve, for sure. With reduced in size, I think 30 inches is a little high for a lot of our species of oaks that we look to be considered heritage trees. So I think definitely some more look into some clarification on stuff along those lines of the size specification would be really nice. There's definitely a few things in there too on I feel like what's noted is who is going to be able to come out and identify trees as being dead, diseased, or hazardous. I think there may need some more clarification in that as well. I'd love to see some sort of at least a minimum level of certification in our industry. ISA certified arborist, which is the International Society of Arboriculture. I think that would be a great, at least minimum qualification to have. I think
Sean, I'll have to stop you for just a moment. Again, we'll have time to come back around so you can finish your thoughts, but just in fairness, I'll have to stop you at 2 minutes.
All right, there you go.
No worries. I do want to take a moment. Daniel Levine, I know that you were registered for our previous session. We want to be sure that you have the ability to speak because you did register earlier, and I believe may have come in a little late to that session. Would you like to speak, Daniel? If so, you'll be receiving that request to unmute if you'd like to share. We wanted to be sure to hear your thoughts. Okay, so it looks like we have reached our list of those who have requested to speak prior to and during this session. So what we'll do is go back up to Mr. Kearns. I would love for you to finish your thoughts. We'll give you an additional 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks. I had written a question in there about whether the mitigation costs have changed from what I read earlier. Maybe I'm just misinformed, but I was understanding that it was $200 an inch, which in the case of a 30-inch tree would be $6,000 mitigation cost. If it's only $1,000 or less, then my comments are still principially the same, but not to the same degree, I guess, as far as the impact of people goes. But I think that once we consider that people have considered carefully whether they want to take a tree down or not, that if someone from the city comes in and tells them, well, we don't feel that that one is as dangerous or not, the city decides. That's a big principle change. They also decide whether or not, if you're doing an addition to your house somewhere, whether or not it affects the tree. They get to say whether that's the case or not, and they get to ask whether or not you think it should be put in a different spot. And I just feel like those are all private, personal decisions that people make with great consternation and considering the alternatives, and to have the city have the ability to make those decisions is a step into our personal lives in a way that is not necessary at this point. I also think that based on the comments of others, that 30 inches could drop to 24. And I would guess that the volume of trees affected at 30 inches is probably a fifth, and I'm not an expert of what a 24 inches are. And I think that then you're getting into a large area of impacting people. And I do want to say, for those of you who want to look, Polaris has historical aerials of tree canopy available that you can go look at right now by year. And it's actually very interesting to zoom in on different neighborhoods. And I was actually shocked in studying these in several areas that the tree canopy percentages on there have changed very little in a lot of places. And the ones that the people who have commented about the trees being obliterated in places, most of those are developments in areas that are very popular now for infill. And I understand that completely. I think it's a different subject. I'm strictly focused on individual single family lots. I just think it's a slippery slope for the government to come in and take that step that they've never been in. They've never been in a stage of telling a single family homeowner what they should do in their yard. And I just don't think it's a big enough issue for us to take that step. And I'm all for the development stuff. I'm all for replanting programs and trees. I think that, and I could go into a lot of details on that, but I'm really focusing on a principle here that I think is not the right step for us to take at this point. And I'm a biggest advocate for the tree canopy you will find, I assure you. And so please understand that I'm not coming from this from a non-conservation perspective. I'm coming from this from a freedom perspective and how important. Anyway, I think I've said enough.
Thank you, Mr. Kern.
Okay.
Hey, Yolanda, if I could chime in real quick
Sure.
with just a basic clarification on one of the items Mr. Kearns asked about, the $200 per inch. Mr. Kearns, that $200 per inch number is currently proposed as a penalty. It's not the starting point for the mitigation fee. It's in the penalty section. So that's what's proposed initially as, a multiplier for unauthorized removal. I just wanted to make that clarification. I thought it made sense. I know we're mostly listening tonight, but it seemed like a very straightforward kind of point of clarification I could make.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, Hope Yancey, we'd love to hear the remainder of your thoughts. I know you had to cut you off a little earlier, so.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I think there's really two separate issues going on here. There's the value and importance of Charlotte's tree canopy, which I think all of us in here generally agree is important. But then there's the issue of how to approach protecting the canopy. And I think that this approach that the city is proposing will have a lot of unintended consequences. I also think it's very heavy-handed. I think that the city should lower the boom on developers, not on private individuals. As I was saying earlier in my remarks, I live in Southeast Charlotte, and you need only drive around the area where I live, and I can spot several large areas that have been clear cut, either for developments that never materialized, and now they're just nuisances with nothing there except clear cut trees, and areas where development activity actually has occurred. And I really believe that this has got to be the bulk of the tree loss in residential areas, not individual homeowners' actions. So I would, if I were the city, I think concentrating on the developers' actions would be the preferred course of action. I think focusing on education where homeowners is concerned and educating people on the importance of trees would be a better approach. I can also envision problematic scenarios under this proposal where you could have a leaning tree near your house that doesn't technically meet the city's criteria for removal without a permit. In other words, it's not dead, diseased, etc., but it does, in your adult judgment, pose a threat to your house because it's leaning over it. How will problematic situations like that, conflicts, be resolved? And it doesn't seem to me that it's reasonable for a homeowner to have to pay a $1,000 fee to protect their home. I don't think anyone wants to remove a tree unnecessarily. Most people don't. But there are situations that would really test the intent of this proposal. If we follow what some of the people in the room have said, before long, the group will have us needing permits to remove or prune any tree in our yards of any size. I think that most people in Charlotte don't even know what's in this proposal. They're busy with their lives. And like on a lot of other issues, they haven't become informed, or perhaps the city hasn't done enough outreach to people. So I think the room here is heavily skewed toward people who agree with the ordinance, and are well informed about it, or at least informed about it. But the vast majority of people in Charlotte are not even aware that this is in the works. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Sean Welch, I know I cut you off a little earlier at your 2-minute mark. Did you want to complete your thoughts as well?
Yeah, I would. You know, I'm definitely a big fan for, you know, I'm an arborist in the city here. I run a tree care company out here. I've been a certified arborist for 11 years. I'm also a tree risk qualified assessment. So, you know, I bear a lot of merits in the industry here. You know, I'm a big fan for tree preservation. I definitely think it is pushing on a harder realm of, again, like what we're looking to do on private single family, you know, homes and things like that. But there are other major cities that are involved in the United States that are really pushing for preservation. You know, Washington, D.C., you know, you've got Atlanta, Georgia, Austin, Texas, even Raleigh's got some stuff that they have implemented, and in Savannah, Georgia, all really awesome progressive cities that are trying to protect their canopy. And they have very similar ordinances to the one that you guys are writing now. Even more stringent than the ones you guys have now. I think yours is extremely lax. And I would love to see, again, a little bit more teeth involved with this ordinance, because of the amount of people that come out and don't educate the homeowners and clients that we're looking to do tree work with. They immediately jump to, oh, this tree's hazardous or blah, 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 for whatever reason they think is going on, and don't take the time to educate the customer. And then they just cut perfectly healthy trees down for no reason. Oh, there's too many leaves that fall on my house. We hear this stuff, the silliest things you see all the time. But I think having an ordinance in play where if people are cutting down mature heritage trees, and that's the thing that we're talking about here. We're talking about large mature trees. We have awesome canopy coverage out here. And I think protecting what we've got is going to be really, really important. We live in a little Mecca area where we have awesome 120-foot tall trees. You go most other places, you know, you don't have awesome trees that we do here. So really preserving that, you know, I'm all for it. And I know the city has definitely looked into copying a little bit of what other cities have done with the ordinance now. And I'm all for it. Again, I really would like to see more definition into things instead of just like 30 inches for everything. I would love to see more definition into who is qualified and who's allowed to come out and say like, hey, this tree is dead, dying, or diseased. I'd love to see more ISA certification involvement, which is a main industry standard, you know, for people coming out. You know, most people, even electricians, plumbers, they're certified. I think bringing a certified person out is a big thing. And then you're going to hopefully get the right education that we're really trying to outreach now. So, you know, I think there's some things in there that definitely need adjusting and some a bit word refinement. But again, I'm totally for it. I think we need to protect what we have here now. You know, 65% of our canopy loss is coming from single family residential homes. It's not really coming from a lot of land development. They have tree save areas they're required to preserve for X amount of percentage of property that they have. So I think things like that could also be beefed up as well in the ordinance to protect even more that we can. I really think that the city is trying to implement something and implement a different change. I know it's a step in toward the realm of telling individual homeowners, hey, you can't move here and purchase this property and just for X amount of reason without due diligence, cut this huge heritage tree down. And you see it time and time again. Also, you know, requiring folks to have a permit to prune trees. I think removal of any more than 5 to 10% live foliage of a tree should be frowned upon. And again, you're more or less looking at topping, and which is done all the time in our cities. And it's horrible out here in Charlotte right now. How many people you'll see go out that aren't certified and are topping trees. And that alone, you might as well just cut the tree down half the time because they die from that. It's an improper pruning practice, not adheres with our standards in the industry right now. There's full standards of pruning that we as arborists adhere to. And that totally goes against what we're trying to do when it comes to preservation and general maintenance of these mature trees, these heritage trees that we have out here. But I mean, I think that's a good little bit right there for you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Welch.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Friday, we do see that your hand is raised. And just as a point
I
of
can work the
clarification, we do
computer.
have one person who signed up, Stacey Erickson. I'm just gonna give your name out there. You'll be called right after Mr. Friday. Thank you.
Okay, I will be very quick. I think as he said, in fact, many cities in North America have regulated trees for years. We have not. And so we've been a little spoiled by that idea. But if we all agree that the tree canopy is important and that as we drive around, we are seeing it disappear. And as Tim points out from that study, 60% is coming from single family lots. That really doesn't mean that I or my neighbors are doing it. It really are people coming in and clear cutting those lots to build new houses or to build duplexes or triplexes or whatever is going on. And so if we really want to encourage not taking down the tree canopy we have and adding to it, maybe this should be written not to penalize people or look for $1,000, for instance, for a certain size tree, but a tree over any size, pick the size, you have to replace trees on your property equal to that. If you take down 20 inches in gross diameter of trees, you have to put X number of trees back. And there's a formula for that. So the idea is not to penalize people, but to allow them to build on their own property the tree canopy going back. And the idea that people are not really aware of this and so forth, I get that with everything we do, but the developers who are taking the single family homes, taking all these trees down and then building on them, they're very familiar with these ordinances. They're probably in our chat and they're aware of this and build that into their work. But I think the time for clear cutting large areas in Charlotte should be over in some way. We need to figure out the right approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friday. Stacey Erickson, would you like to speak? If so, you'll be receiving a request to unmute from the meeting host.
Hi, I'm sorry I came into this a little late, but I do agree strongly with, I hope I'm saying this right, Mr. Welch and Mr. Friday's comments. So I may have missed some things that you already talked about. Tree canopy loss is a huge one for me. I watched what used to be a 44-acre farm behind me that was all trees get developed and now looks like a barren landscape with some, box houses on it. So with that being said, and I've seen some of the new, some of the ideas about some of the tree ordinances that are going to go into place. I just want to know how that is going to be monitored and or enforced going forward, especially with development.
Ms. Erickson, I'll just break in just for a second. So these sessions, if you could pose the question, it will be answered because we will enter them into our comment period. But during this session, we won't be stopping for questions and answers. So I didn't.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what the speaking was for, but okay, thank you.
No worries. We definitely have the question that you did pose though, and it will be placed into our comment portal for answer. So
thank you
for sharing. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Jim Stites, it looks like you would like to speak again as well.
Yeah, I just was prompted to say one more thing by an earlier comment regarding the carve outs or exceptions for hazardous or diseased trees. I've seen in several other municipalities where that becomes just a completely unlimited loophole, a loophole to such an extent that it mostly negates the effect of the law, especially if the landowner is tempted to cut first and ask permission later, ask forgiveness, not permission sort of thing. And of course, once the tree is gone, well, then for the city to show that what the tree was in fact hazardous becomes a rather difficult matter and very difficult to impose sanctions upon. So I would like to see a forward-looking prospective assessments of all of our heritage trees so that we can know ahead of time and a landowner can know ahead of time if something is protected. And I agree with earlier speakers that the diameter threshold should be as low and as inclusive therefore as possible. And also regarding one other point made by an earlier speaker about where the blame lies, development of new lots versus individual lot owners redeveloping, remodeling, etc., and thereby taking out individual trees. I see both as tremendous problems. They both have both types of tree cover have tremendous ecological value, and the city should not choose one versus the other. It should take an eye towards strongly discouraging both forms of tree loss. We really don't have much margin to play with at this point. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then finally, I think, all right, Billy Anderson.
Yes. Thank you for letting me speak again. I think when we do talk about replanting, which I think is also a good opportunity, we need to consider that a one-for-one planting doesn't necessarily have the same environmental impact. It's my understanding that when trees are removed, and especially depending on how they're removed, carbon is released and thus has a really detrimental effect. So while replanting, I think, is definitely a strategy that is very needed, we need to really understand the full environmental extent and take that into consideration when we're building out whatever that calculation is that some people previously spoke to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It looks as if we've reached the end of our open forum. So I am going to turn it over to Andrew Ossel to close out our session.
Thank you, Yolanda, and thank you for that good dialogue back and forth. Appreciate all the comments. We wanted to end this by just highlighting some resources and engagement opportunities for the remainder of the comment period on the first draft of the UDO. The first that we'll highlight is a series of educational videos that we're excited about. We've developed 5 videos that show graphically and through a short sort of spoken out script, what the UDO means for existing neighborhoods, highlighting some key changes and what the intent and sort of direction is for the UDO in each of these groups. So the 4 videos that we have created are what does the UDO mean for existing neighborhoods, for new neighborhoods, for existing businesses, and then for new development, which we thought are kind of 4 big areas of our city that the UDO is important to understand sort of how it interacts with you. Secondly, we want to highlight the comment portal. If you have not gone into the comment portal, we really suggest you take the time and submit some comments there. That is the best way for us to receive comments. We will be uploading the comments that were shared tonight to the public comment portal for those who were able to speak tonight. But there are pages that were set up for all the different areas of the UDO. So there's a page for zoning, there's a page for stormwater and natural resources, which will contain the trees article, and then subdivision, streets and infrastructure, and then another section for UDO administration. So we encourage you, as you read the UDO or read some of these resources, be sure to go to publicinput.com/Charlotte UDO. You'll be able to find it on the website. I would go to that public comments link at the top of the website. The last thing that we'll highlight is the upcoming listening sessions that we're going to hold. Again, these are topics that have had a lot of community feedback and back and forth on both sides. So we wanted to have continued discussion on them in an open forum style. February 24th, we'll be talking about short-term rentals. March 3rd, neighborhood 1 zoning districts. And then, so neighborhood 1, for those of you that aren't familiar with that, is really your sort of your single family duplex, triplex neighborhoods in Charlotte. And then March 10th, we're going to be taking on parking. All of these sessions are going to be offered twice, once at noon and then once at 6 o'clock, just like tonight's session. I think that's it. So with that, I do see something in the chat. Yeah, just Tim saying thank you. We appreciate everybody for coming tonight. We will again be uploading all of the comments shared tonight, and we really appreciate the candid back and forth. So with that, thank you and good night.